Angela wrapped her fading Ankara scarf around her head. Her eyes were hollow from another sleepless night, but her steps were steady. Her small, weather-worn basket dangled from her arm. Inside was a single crumpled 500 naira note, barely enough to buy vegetables for the day. But she had learned to stretch little into something. That was what widows like her did, stretch pain into prayer and hunger into patience. She closed the creaky wooden door of her one-room house behind her. It barely locked, but there was nothing inside worth stealing anyway. She was alone in the world. No husband, no child, no future, just survival. As she walked the familiar dusty path toward the market, her mind wandered to the days when her husband, Chibuzo, was alive. How he would walk with her on mornings like this, teasing her about her walking speed, calling her my queen of Umulechi. He had died suddenly, collapsing one afternoon in their compound. No warning, no goodbye, just silence. They said she was cursed. They said it was her fault. They whispered that she was barren, that she killed him, that her womb was empty because her spirit was full of bad luck. She walked past them every day. Those same mouths that once smiled at her wedding now spat curses behind her back. But she endured, until today, because something was about to change. She had just reached the bend in the road where the large udu tree stood, known for its shade and for being a spot where traders often waited for transport. Angela was about to greet the woman beside the tree when she heard it. A sound, soft, fragile, like a kitten mewing. She paused. The road was quiet, too quiet. No goats bleating, no wheels rolling, just that sound, a cry. She stepped off the path toward a cassava sack lying by the base of the udu tree. At first, she thought it was abandoned food or waste. Then she saw it move. Her heart skipped. She dropped her basket and ran closer. The sack was open at the top, and inside were two tiny babies, twins, wrapped in torn rags, their bodies barely covered, their faces flushed from the heat. The girl whimpered. The boy kicked weakly. Angela dropped to her knees. Jesus. She looked around. No mother, no father, no note, no explanation. Just two helpless souls left on the side of the road like forgotten trash. Other villagers began to gather, drawn by her shout. Ha! Twins abandoned? This world is finished, a man said, folding his arms. Maybe their mother died, or maybe she ran mad, someone offered. Or maybe the father ran away when he found out she gave birth to twins, another voice said. Some laughed, some shook their heads, but no one moved. Angela looked around at the growing crowd. No one made a move to lift them. No one stepped forward. She could barely breathe. The sight before her pierced through every scar she carried, every insult, every accusation, every night she had cried herself to sleep praying for a child. Now here they were, two. She reached into the sack and gently lifted the boy. He was light, too light, malnourished. His eyes rolled slightly, then focused on her face. She gasped. It was as if he recognized her. The girl's cry was weaker now. Angela scooped her up too, holding both to her chest. She rose slowly, legs trembling, as if the weight she carried now was more than flesh. It was destiny. Where are you taking them? A voice asked from the crowd. To the police, she said. They need help. Angela, you no even get peeking before. Now you want to carry two, someone scoffed. She looked up, eyes fierce with tears. They are children. They deserve to live. You can't even feed yourself, another man added. Then let God feed us all, she replied. She turned and began walking back toward the road. The twins clutched tightly in her arms. No one followed. She heard their whispers, their judgments, their laughter, but she didn't stop, because something deep inside her heart had shifted. She didn't know who had abandoned these children, but she knew this: she would not. The walk to the police station took nearly 40 minutes. Angela's arms ached from the weight of the twins, but she never loosened her grip. The sun climbed higher in the sky, scorching the back of her neck. Sweat soaked her scarf, and dust clung to her wrapper. She barely noticed. Her mind was consumed by only one thing: these children must not die. The police station in Umualechi was a cracked cement building with rusted window bars and an old wooden sign that leaned to one side. The air inside smelled of stale paper, unwashed uniforms, and heat. A tired officer behind the desk barely looked up. "Yes, madam. What is it?" Angela stepped forward, her voice shaking. "Please, officer. I found them. On the roadside. Twins. Abandoned." The officer finally looked up. His eyes widened as he saw the frail infants in her arms. He called another officer, then another. A female constable took the girl from Angela's trembling hands. The boy remained in her arms. They asked questions, many questions. "Where exactly did you find them? Did you see anyone nearby? Did you touch anything around the scene?" Angela answered them all, calmly, respectfully. Finally, one of the officers leaned back in his chair. "We'll need to keep them here. Make a report. Maybe their parents will come looking." Angela shook her head. "No one is coming." "You don't know that," the female constable replied gently. Angela's voice grew firm. I know what abandonment looks like. I know what it feels like." They exchanged glances. The officer sighed. "Fine. We'll take them to the hospital for a checkup and then hand them over to social welfare." Angela's body stiffened. She had seen what social welfare meant in this country. Overcrowded orphanages, children forgotten in corners, sometimes abused, sometimes trafficked. They didn't always come out whole. "I want to adopt them," she said suddenly. All heads turned. The officer raised a brow. "You what?" "I want to be their mother." The room fell silent. "You?" he laughed. "Do you have a husband?" "No." "Do you have a job?" "I work small things." "Do you have a house?" Angela hesitated. "Yes, one room." The officer dropped his pen and leaned back. "Madam, please don't joke with matters like this. These are human lives. It's not groundnut you're picking in the market." "I know," she said, her voice steady, "and that's why I'm here. If I leave them here, they may die before they are even named. Let me try. Let me raise them. Let me give them a chance." The female officer watched her for a long time, then whispered something into the DPO's ear. That was the beginning. The process was brutal. She had to travel 3 times to the state capital for interviews and documentation. Each trip meant money she didn't have. She borrowed from kind neighbors. She sold her husband's old radio. She fasted on the days she had no food. At the Ministry of Women Affairs, a young officer looked at her torn wrapper and sunburnt skin and asked, "Why would a woman with nothing want to take on 2 children who aren't hers?" Angela smiled gently. "Because they have no one, and I know what it feels like to be no one's choice." The woman was silent for a long time, then stamped the file. It took 2.5 months, but finally, Angela became a mother. She was handed official adoption papers. She wept over the documents like they were a newborn baby in themselves. The babies, now plumper, healthier, slept in her arms, unaware that their fate had shifted because one woman had chosen to stand in the gap. She named them Eze, meaning king, Ada, meaning first daughter. She didn't know their real names. She never would. But in naming them, she gave them new beginnings, new identities, new destinies. When she arrived back in the village, her neighbors came to see for themselves. That Angela brought back twins. Does she think children are firewood? She couldn't even give birth to one. Her late husband's elder brother, Nadi, stood outside her door that evening with folded arms. "You are disgracing our family," he spat. "You couldn't give my brother a child, now you bring bastards to live in his house? Over my dead body." "I am not here to disgrace anyone," she replied calmly. "I'm here to give them a home." "They are not our blood." Angela looked him in the eye. "They don't need to be blood to be family." He slapped the wall beside her. "We will not allow it." The next morning, while she was at the stream washing clothes, they broke her water pot, tore down her door, and threw her belongings into the yard. They left the twins crying on the floor. The villagers gathered again. Some laughed. Some looked away. One old woman, Mama Ifoma, stood by her side. "My daughter," she whispered, "come. You and the children will stay in my father's abandoned hut. It leaks, but at least it has a door." Angela held her twins close. "Thank you. I'll fix it with time." That night, with only a mat, one blanket, and a broken lantern, Angela laid Eze and Ada between her and whispered, "You are mine, maybe not from my womb, but from my soul." The world had rejected her. Her in-laws cursed her. Poverty mocked her. But Angela chose love anyway, because to her, those children were not strangers. They were her destiny. The hut Angela now called home was made of cracked mud walls, patched holes, and a leaking thatch roof. When it rained, water trickled onto the mat where the twins lay. On windy nights, the door creaked as if spirits pushed against it. And when it was hot, the room turned into a furnace. Yet within those fragile walls lived something stronger than most mansions ever knew. Love. Unfiltered, unshakable love. Angela woke before dawn every day, careful not to wake Eze or Ada. She would light the tiny kerosene stove and boil the same thing each morning. Pop and crayfish water, whatever she could afford that week. When there was no food, she boiled water and sang lullabies to trick their hunger into sleep. She took any job she could find, fetching firewood for the baker, sweeping compounds, selling roasted plantains by the roadside. Her palms cracked from long hours. Her back ached from carrying both twins. But she never once complained. She sang softly as she worked, humming Igbo folk songs about hope, about strength, about mothers who fought lions with bare hands. People mocked her everywhere she went. They called Eze and Ada children of dust, abandoned things, cursed children. Angela heard it all, and still, she smiled. The market incident. One afternoon, Angela went to the village market with the twins tied on her back and chest, Eze in front, Ada behind. She had only 300 yupes in her wrapper. She needed gari, maybe a little vegetable. A young woman selling tomatoes looked up and smirked. "Eh, see the mad woman again, carrying market twins everywhere." Her friends laughed. "Angela, have you prayed against barrenness? Maybe God will give you your own child." Angela turned, her voice calm. "Every child I love is already mine." The women froze, the strength in her voice. It unsettled them. She walked away, head high. Angela's late husband's brother, Nadi, had not forgotten her defiance. Every week he sent boys to harass her. They stoned the roof. They insulted the twins loudly. Once they smeared charcoal on her door and wrote, "Bastard keeper." One evening, Nadi came himself. Angela was mashing yam with a pestle, while Eze played with sticks nearby and Ada scribbled in the sand. "Angela," he said without greeting, "return those children to wherever you stole them from." Angela looked up. Her eyes were tired, but they still burned with fire. They are mine now, legally. Legal doesn't make it right. You killed my brother, and now you're raising strangers in his shadow. Angela put down the pestle slowly. My husband died of a heart attack. You know that. You just want to hate me. He stepped closer. Those children will bring more curses on your head. Angela picked up Ize, kissed his cheek, and said softly, even if the world calls them curses, I call them blessings. He spat on the ground and walked away. By age 5, Ada and Ize were bright, playful children. Ada loved sitting quietly with books Angela borrowed from the old priest. Ize was louder, bolder. He ran everywhere, asked endless questions. Angela enrolled them in a small public school 3 villages away. It cost more than she had, but she found ways. Sometimes she cleaned the headmaster's office to waive a portion of the fees. Sometimes she fasted for days to buy textbooks. The children were happy, until the bullying began. One day they came home unusually quiet. Angela noticed it immediately. Ize, Ada, what happened in school? Ada looked away, tears already welling. Ize's lower lip trembled. He finally burst out. They said you're not our real mother. They said we were dumped in the gutter, that we're bastards. Angela's heart shattered, but her face remained calm. She sat on the floor and pulled them both into her arms. My children, she whispered, voice quivering. Blood may give life, but love gives family. I may not have carried you in my womb, but I carry you here. She pressed her palm to her chest. Every day. Tears streamed down her face. It doesn't matter what they say. They don't know us. They don't know what we've survived together. She wiped their tears with her wrapper and kissed their foreheads. Then she looked into their eyes and said the words that would stay with them for life. Parenthood is not by blood, but by love, presence, and responsibility. Who raises the child is the true parent. That night, as they lay on the mat, Ada reached for her hand and whispered, I love you, Mama. Angela couldn't speak. She only held their hands tightly and stared at the leaking roof. Rainwater dripped near her mat, but her soul was warm, because in that moment, despite poverty, rejection, and insult, she had everything. The years continued to roll forward like an old wheel on a dirt road, slow, squeaky, unpredictable. Angela aged faster than time permitted. Her face grew leaner, her hands more calloused, but her spirit only grew stronger. Ez and Ada were now in their teens. They had outgrown the tattered mat they once slept on. Their bodies lengthened, their voices matured, and their dreams widened beyond the leaking roof of their mud hut. And still, Angela gave them everything. The sacrifice. One Harmattan morning, Ez returned home from school with a brown envelope trembling in his hand. Mama, he said breathlessly, we've been selected, both of us, a government scholarship program for children in rural areas. They'll sponsor our final WAEC exams, but we need uniforms, passport photos, medical checkups. Everything is due in 2 weeks. Angela smiled at first. Her eyes lit up, but slowly her smile faded. Because she didn't have the money. Not for uniforms, not for medical forms, not for food. That night, after the twins were asleep, Angela stared at her late husband's picture, just a faded portrait by a candlelit shelf. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Chibuzo, I wish you were here. They deserve so much. I have nothing left to sell. Then her eyes landed on the only item of value in the house, her wedding necklace. Gold, heavy, old, passed from her mother to her. A symbol of love, a symbol of what once was. She held it for a long time. The next day, she walked 5 miles to a gold buyer. "I'll sell this," she said. The man looked up. "This is real gold. Are you sure?" "I'm sure." He weighed it, gave her the cash. Angela held it tightly as she walked home, tears sliding down her face. She hadn't cried in months, but today she cried. Not because she had lost something, but because her children were about to gain everything, from mockery to respect. The same village that mocked her began to watch in silence as Ada and Eze excelled. Their report cards were read aloud during PTA meetings. Their names were written on the school notice board. They began to win debate competitions and academic prizes. Angela always stood at the back of those events, wearing her cleanest wrapper, clapping with trembling hands, smiling with tearful pride. Mama Ada, they began to call her. Mama Eze. The same mouths that once said, "Bastard keeper," now said, "Great mother." But Angela didn't let the praise touch her pride. She continued fetching water, continued roasting plantain by the roadside, continued fixing her roof with old sacks and a bent spine. Because for her, motherhood was not a platform. It was a purpose. The heartbreak. Then came a letter, folded, sealed, stamped in red. Eze had earned admission into the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. Ada, a week later, received hers from the University of Ibadan. She had been awarded a merit-based scholarship to study public health. They danced around the compound that night, screaming with joy. Neighbors came to congratulate them. Angela cooked with the last cup of rice she had been saving for Christmas. But when the celebration was over, the reality set in. There was still more money to be paid: transport, accommodation, clearance forms, medical reports, even food to survive the first few weeks. Angela stayed awake all night. She stared at the roof as rainwater trickled into a rusty bowl. Then she made a decision. The next morning, she went to the church, knelt before the altar, and whispered, "God, they're ready. Take me if you must, but don't let them return empty-handed." That same week, Angela collapsed in the market. The sun had been harsh. She hadn't eaten in 2 days, but she refused to tell the twins. They found her on the floor of her plantain stall, still gripping the 200 naira she had made that day. At the health center, the nurse scolded her gently. "Madam, you must eat. Hunger is not a badge of honor." Angela only smiled. When a mother starves for her child, it is love, not foolishness. The twins packed their bags with clothes donated by the church and neighbors. The village contributed 15,000 naira for transport and feeding. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Angela hugged them both the morning they left. Her body was weak, but her soul was on fire. "My children," she said, holding their hands, "the world may never know where you came from, but they will know what you become. Remember who you are." Eze hugged her tightly. "I'll build you a house one day." Ada kissed her hand. "And I'll heal your body with my medicine." Angela smiled. "I don't need a house or a hospital. I just need you to keep walking. Never stop." The bus drove off. She stood at the roadside until the dust settled. She returned home that night to an empty hut, a quiet floor, and a heart bursting with hope. She had nothing in her hands, but she had everything in her soul. The compound was quieter now. Angela's life, once filled with the laughter and chatter of 2 young voices, had become a silence she tried to fill with memories. She still woke up early, even though there were no lunch boxes to pack or school uniforms to iron. Old habits held tightly to her bones, She swept the compound every morning with her worn-out broom. She sat under the mango tree in the evenings, staring down the path, hoping to see a letter, a parcel, or a familiar figure in the distance. The silence was heavy, but she bore it with dignity. The village murmurs. The villagers had not forgotten Angela, but they no longer whispered curses behind her back. No, something had shifted. Rumors began to swirl. They say Eze is now on television. Did you see his face during that youth conference in Abuja? And Ada? I heard she received a presidential grant for her public health campaign in the north. They say they both speak fluent English now, like Oyibo. Angela heard it all, by the well, at the church gate, outside her roasting stall. The same mouths that once laughed at her poverty now spoke her name with reverence. But Angela said little. Whenever someone came to ask her about her children, she would only smile, wipe her hands on her wrapped and say, "They are in God's hands." One afternoon, Angela was sitting outside her hut peeling okra, humming softly, when a figure approached. She looked up, and her breath caught. It was Nadi, her late husband's brother. His face had changed. Age had drawn deep lines into his cheeks. His steps were slower now, his stomach flatter, and in his hand was a sack of yams. Angela stood slowly, unsure. He stopped in front of her and lowered his eyes. "Angela, I have come to say I was wrong." She blinked. I did terrible things to you, said things no human should say. I chased you from your husband's house. I called those children bastards. But look now, look what they've become." Angela said nothing. Her heart was trembling, but her face stayed calm. He continued, tears glistening in his eyes. "The world now calls them leaders, and they call you mother. Not us, not his blood. You. I came to say I'm sorry." Angela stepped forward slowly. She didn't take the sack. She simply placed her hand on his shoulder. "I forgave you a long time ago, Nadi," she said gently. "Bitterness is too heavy for a woman like me to carry." Nadi wept, and the villagers who saw the scene could only whisper in awe. 2 weeks later, a group of strangers arrived in the village. A camera crew, 2 reporters, a drone, a shiny black Jeep. They asked for Mama Angela. They had come from a national television station, African Legacy Weekly. They wanted to film a special segment on the unsung mothers of great African leaders. Angela had no idea what any of that meant. She only knew one thing. They were talking about her children. They sat her down, fixed her wrapper, powdered her face, and turned on the cameras. One of the journalists asked, "Ma, when you picked those twins from the roadside, did you ever imagine this day would come?" Angela laughed softly. "Imagine? No. I didn't even imagine we'd make it past the next meal." The room laughed. She grew serious. "I picked them because no one else would. I stayed with them because I knew the world wouldn't. I didn't give them my blood, but I gave them everything else." The journalist leaned in. "What do you want people to remember about you, Mama Angela?" Angela paused for a long moment. Her eyes grew misty. Then she said softly, "He blood but by love, presence, and responsibility. Who raises the child is the true parent." The crew was silent. The lead cameraman wiped his eyes before calling cut. That week 2 letters arrived, one from Eze, one from Ada. Angela held them like treasure. She opened Eze's first. The ink was smooth, the handwriting neat. "Have nominated me for National Youth Ambassador. I will be meeting the president next month. I told them about you, about your plantains, about your sacrifices. They want to meet you someday. Worry, Mama. I'm coming home soon, not empty-handed." Rest the paper to her chest, then opened Ada's. "Just been accepted into the World Health Graduate Program in the UK. They want me to speak about maternal care in rural Africa. Without telling your story. You are my research, Mama. You are the evidence that one heart can save 1,000 lives. You love you, your daughter Ada." Angela wept and wept. That night under the leaking roof she had once cursed, she lay down and stared at the stars through the cracks and whispered, "God, you remembered me." It was a Sunday. The sky was unusually blue. The breeze carried the scent of ripening mangoes and red dust. Church bells echoed faintly from the nearby parish as Angela finished scrubbing her compound with a broom missing half its bristles. She was humming softly, an old Igbo hymn her mother used to sing, when the ground beneath her began to vibrate. It started as a low rumble, then the sound of engines, loud, powerful engines, and then horns. Not Okada, not Keke, SUVs, black, glossy, gleaming. Angela looked up just in time to see a convoy snake its way into the heart of Umwelechi, the arrival. 3 black Land Cruisers, 1 long Mercedes bus, a pilot vehicle with uniformed escorts. The villagers ran out. Children screamed and clapped. Mothers shielded their eyes from the dust. Old men sat up straighter on their stools. Even Nadi, her brother-in-law, came out, wiping his face with a handkerchief. The cars stopped, right in front of Angela's compound. She stood still, silent, frozen. The driver stepped out and opened the back door, and there he was, Eze. No longer the hungry boy with oversized slippers, now a man in a well-cut blue suit, polished shoes, and a face as bright as destiny. He stood tall, regal, confident. He turned and opened the next door. Ada stepped out, elegant in a flowing red gown, her natural hair tied up in a crown of braids. Her earrings sparkled, her poise dignified. The twins, her twins, returned. The villagers gasped. One woman whispered, "Is that not Mama Angela's children? My God." Another said, "He looks like a president already." They both walked toward the hut. Angela's hands trembled. She took a step forward, her knees weak with disbelief. And then, like a dam breaking, she cried out, "My children!" Ada ran. Eze followed. They threw their arms around her, and for a long, holy moment, the world disappeared. It was just them, a woman who chose love over comfort, and the children who never forgot. The gift. When the embrace finally broke, Eze stepped back, reached into his pocket, and brought out something golden. A key. Angela frowned. "What is this?" Ada took her hand gently. "Mama, it's the key to your new house." Angela blinked. "What house?" They turned. They tilted her to a new mansion which they had built. The house had been built in the village, and many villagers had wondered who owns the house. No one knew the owner. Some thought it was a hotel owned by foreigners. Said the house had belonged to a politician. But now it's very clear. The true owner of the mansion is revealed. A mansion, painted cream and gold, fenced, gated, tiled roof, solar lights, flower beds already blooming. A plaque on the front gate read, "The Angela Foundation, Home of the Hope." The crowd screamed in awe. "Mama Angela! Mama Angela!" Angela's knees gave way, but Eze held her. She began to sob. "This house, for me? Me?" Eze smiled. "Yes, Mama, this is just the beginning." But, why? Ada's voice was firm. "Because you chose us, when no one did. You made us your own. You built kings out of ashes. You made a home out of broken clay." A photographer snapped photos. A cameraman filmed the moment. The village chief arrived, panting from the news. He embraced Angela. "The whole nation will hear this. What kind of woman are you, Angela? You are the mother of royalty, recognition, and revelation." Later that day, inside the grand sitting room of her new home, walls painted cream, furniture plush, pictures of Ada and Eze framed in glass, Angela sat like a queen. Eze stood and addressed the gathered guests. My name is Eze Okafor. I was once a child left by the roadside to die, but this woman, this poor widow, chose to be a mother to me. Today, I have been appointed as the youngest senior special advisor to the president on youth development. The crowd applauded. He turned to his mother. Mama, this honor belongs to you. Ada stood next. I've just been awarded the International Rising Humanitarian Award for my medical outreach program across West Africa, and my foundation was accepted by the UN. More applause. But Ada wasn't done. She turned to Angela. But all I am is a reflection of you. You taught me that motherhood is not biology, it's sacrifice. You were our light in the dark. You are our miracle. Tears streamed down Angela's cheeks. The promise. That night, after the guests had left and the lights dimmed, Angela sat outside her new mansion, looking up at the sky. The stars twinkled like they once had when she prayed over 2 hungry children in a leaking hut. Eze came out and joined her. Ada soon followed. They sat together on the balcony, the city lights flickering in the distance. Mama, Eze said, do you remember what you told us that day after school when we were crying? Angela looked at him, her eyes now glassy with age and memory. I told you many things. He smiled. No, that one thing, that truth. And together they all said it. Pud is not by blood, but by love, presence, and responsibility. Who raises the child is the true parent. Angela leaned back in her chair. The twins each held one of her hands, and for the first time in her life, she felt it, not just peace, royalty. The days that followed their reunion were like golden petals falling from heaven. Angela's new mansion quickly became the pride of Umulechi, not just because of its size or beauty, but because of what it represented. To many, it was just a house, but to Angela, it was a living testimony, a monument of grace, a reward carved from years of suffering, ridicule, and sacrificial love. A new dawn. Each morning, Ada made breakfast for Angela. Hot oats, akara, soft bread, and fresh fruit juice. They laughed together in the gleaming kitchen, with its polished tiles and marble countertops. Eze would sit beside Angela in the evening, massaging her tired feet, telling her stories from Abuja, the political battles, the media chaos, the pressure. And Angela would just listen, smiling faintly. You're no longer my little boy, she often said. I'm still your boy, Mama, he always replied. She would glance at Ada and nod. And you, my Ada is now changing the world. Ada would sit on the floor beside her, holding her hand like a child again. Angela didn't ask for these things, but they gave them anyway. Love, unconditional, pure. A week later, something unexpected happened. The village town crier beat his drum and made an announcement that echoed through the streets. The Council of Elders, Mama Angela will receive the chieftaincy title of Neobioma, Mother of Good Heart. All villagers are invited. People began preparations. Banners were printed. Women rehearsed dance steps. The old choir from church wrote a special song just for her. Angela was speechless when the news reached her. I don't need a title, she said quietly. Ada smiled. Mama, you didn't chase honor, but now it's chasing you. The ceremony was magnificent. Angela, dressed in royal blue lace, walked under a flower arch. Her silver hair was wrapped in a beaded headgear. The drums beat. The ululations rose. Women danced in circles. Elders stood to salute her. When the title was conferred, Angela lifted her hands and wept openly. My God, she whispered, you remembered me after all. A visit to the past. One afternoon, Angela asked to be taken back. Back where? Eze asked. To the hut, the old one. They drove slowly through the village until they reached the place she once called home. It was now an overgrown ruin. Grass covered the floor. The door had fallen off. A rat scurried out of the corner. Angela stepped out and stood in the doorway. Here was where she had fought, prayed, starved, cried. Here was where she taught Eze to walk and Ada to read. She turned to her children. You see this place? This is where you became royalty. Not in the palace, not in the mansion. Here. Ada held her and cried. Eze knelt by the door and picked up a stone. I'll keep this forever, he said, a reminder of where we began. That night, they returned home. Angela was quiet, more thoughtful than usual. She sat in her room and stared out the window. The moonlight spilled across the floor. Eze and Ada entered and knelt beside her. Mama, Ada said softly, what are you thinking? Angela didn't speak for a long moment. Then she said, when I first found you two, people called you bastards. They said I was mad. They said I was cursed. But I looked into your eyes and I saw destiny. I didn't need blood to call you mine. Eze's eyes filled. You gave us more than life. You gave us identity. Angela touched their cheeks. My time here is almost done. I can feel it, but my soul is satisfied. No, Mama, Ada whispered. You'll live long. Angela smiled. Even if I sleep tomorrow, I have already lived enough to last 1,000 years. She leaned back into her chair, held both their hands tightly, and said the words one final time. Benthood is not by blood, but by love, presence, and responsibility. Who raises the child is the true parent. They held her. She held them. And in that sacred stillness, love